The Honorable Minister of Information has reeled out a lot of instructive statistics and data, very, very instructive, to counter the narrative of inaction by this government. And I want to plead with you as the purveyors of information. It is not just enough to get a text or listen to a speech or an address. One of the core tenets of our profession is to be able to identify the core message in an address. And the core message, the takeaway here, is the criticality of those statistics. They are very, very critical. Because when situations like this arise, the tendency, the inclination, or proclivity of human beings is to react emotionally. But here, in this government, in the Tinubu government, we are not reacting emotionally at all. We are reacting with empirical verification. And that's what the Honorable Minister of Information had just done. The statistics, the figures, the data, showing specific actions to ameliorate the long-standing insecurity. We all know that this insecurity did not start yesterday, nor started in 2023. But from the actions taken so far, if one is unbiased, you will know that from the plethora of actions taken in the last 2 years, if we had taken those actions in the last 10 years, we probably won't be where we are today. Ranging from the changes in the security architecture, the top brass of our various security agencies, changed in 2023, changed again few days or so ago, to reinvigorate and inject new enthusiasm and impetus into the fight against insecurity. These are not happenstances. These are policies and actions emanating from deep, very exhaustive planning and strategizing. And they are yielding results. And only, just as the minister said, a global organization recently published the fact that globally, in the last decade in Nigeria, the last 2 years had recorded the lowest incidences of insecurity. Locally, to us, even one incident is an anathema, is abhorrent. But when you look at the various figures in the last 10 or more years, and you do a comparative analysis with the last 2 years, you will see the tremendous efforts that this government had put in place and the actions so far taken to stem the tide of this insecurity. Insecurity which we know, except one is deceiving himself, nearly everybody in this country knows that there is no deliberate targeting of any religion for persecution. There are factors. Sometimes when these terrorists go to attack, they don't go to attack because of the religion of those inhabitants of those communities. They go to attack for different reasons, largely economic. Some may be political, but it's largely economic. But then, Ironically, some of those communities are inhabited by a particular religion. So now to use the faith of the inhabitants as the motive for the attack is totally off the mark. It does not reflect the reality on ground, and we all know it. So my plea to you as media men, gatekeepers, is to note the criticality of the various action steps and statistics reflecting the results of actions. For instance, how many people know or is aware that the terrible attack on a church in Owo some years back, before this administration, if you recall, where worshippers were killed right inside the church, those marauders had been apprehended and are facing prosecution. Whereas some people still bandy that as, oh, where are those people who did this? Where are the perpetrators? They are not brought to book. They are not this. They are not that. Even the Yeltada, the one in Yelwada, that happened in Plateau, in Benue, they had been apprehended, arrested, and are facing prosecution. And that's an eloquent testimony to the fact that government is alive to its responsibilities and is not shirking any, duties of protecting lives and properties. So it's important for us as purveyors of information, as I said, to be circumspect when it comes to reporting of sensitive issues. Because you need a peaceful, stable country to be able to practice whichever profession, especially journalism. In the middle of conflagration, you may not even have an office to go to. So it is in our own individual interest to ensure that we invoke that subject of mass communication in graduate school, which is called responsibility theory of the press, which means the press has a responsibility to the society in which it is operating. Because if there is no society, there is no press, there is nothing, there is no institution. So even on a selfish note, we have a duty to protect the sanctity of our nation and of our society so that we can practice our profession in an unfettered environment, in a peaceful, progressive environment. And what the minister just said about you supporting our security agencies in combating the security is also very, very important. And I'll give you one simple idea of how the media inadvertently perpetuates a wrong narrative. For instance, when terrorists kill members of the security agencies, like the military, the screaming headline is always X number of soldiers killed by terrorists. Killed, that's the active word. Conversely, when our military succeed in killing terrorists, the headline is usually the military says it or claims it has. That immediately creates a specter of cynicism and skepticism, unbelievability, which further strengthens the hands of the terrorists. It is wrong. When our military that we should be supporting kills these people, we say they claim. But when it's the other way around, we scream it that terrorists have killed, as if we are gloating over the killing of our security, those who are defending us. So I think, my dear colleagues, this is something we must ponder on and redress immediately. It's a low-hanging fruit to show our own sense of national patriotism and responsibility. And again, somebody asked the question, which the minister also answered, about foreign intervention of stakeholders, religious groups sponsoring this and that. Let us be factual with ourselves. That is not an isolated thing. For decades, before those of us in this hall were born, foreign groups had always been sponsoring internal division, especially in developing societies, in order to keep them down. Because the world, actually, it's like a scale. It's a scale. A scale has two arms. Now, the developed societies are up there. Their scale is up. So, the underdeveloped or developing, the arm is down. If the developing societies want to push up their own scale to develop, it means the scale of the developed must come down. That's the reality of a scale. So, do you seriously think that those who are up there will fold their arms and allow you to rise? We must think deeply before we start pushing out wrong narratives about our own society that these international organizations now use against us. Even this narrative of Nigeria, why the US is labeling Nigeria and all that, the narrative emanated from here. In actual fact, there are some groups who are angry politically that they lost elections, and they started pushing this narrative in the US up until yesterday. There is a letter here, which I'm sure is already on the social media, written by a group of Nigerians, signed, applauding, sending the letter to the president of the US, applauding him for labeling Nigeria as a place of concern. Just purely for political prejudice. Because you lost elections, you don't like the administration there, so the country should go to blazes. Now, forgetting that if there is any conflagration, you can only know the beginning, you can't predict the end. And you cannot even pinpoint who the victims will be. You can't. So it's a stunted thinking and an act of serious crime against Nigeria for any Nigerian to be hobnobbing and encouraging separatist movements, conflagration, insurrection, and disintegration of Nigeria purely for selfish reasons. It is not that. And the media is a platform that they use. If they write 10,000 letters, if those letters don't get published, they have no effect. But when they write only one, we give vent to it. And then we encourage others to move in against us. So, please, sir, and Maz, this is the time for all Nigerians to speak with one voice. Whatever internal disagreements, there will always be internal disagreements anyway. Which country in the world is devoid of internal disagreement? Which one? None. So to exaggerate our own and use it as a weapon of internal problem is not the best for us. We as media men have a very critical role to play in stemming the tide of all of these negative narratives, and God will help us all. Thank you.